Hey, what's going on? I'm Matt O'Leary back with another video, and today's topic is going to be the New York Jets wide receiver position and what I expect for them in 2019. But before we get started, I just wanted to mention that you can follow me on social media at Matt O'Leary NY on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. So now that we got that out of the way, let's get started with my expectations. I'm really going to talk about the three big wide receivers in Robbie Anderson, Quincy Enunwa, and Jameson Crowder. After that, I don't think the wide receivers are going to be used a ton. Their fourth wide receiver is probably going to be Bellamy. And I don't think he's going to get a ton of reps unless there's an injury, God forbid. But I think the Jets offense is going to really work through those three wide receivers, the two running backs in Le'Veon Bell and Ty Montgomery. And then when he's back, Chris Herndon. Then that's six pretty solid options for the Jets to work with. Coming in at number one is Robbie Anderson. He is the de facto number one wide receiver, even though there isn't really a prototypical wide receiver number one on this team. He came on strong in the final four games with Sam Darnold last year, and it just looks like this guy is going to take the next step forward. Him and Sam have been on the same page, so I expect big things for Robbie Anderson in 2019. I expect him to have 1,050 receiving yards, 8 touchdowns, and 70 receptions. Yes, this would be the first time Robbie Anderson cracked the 1,000-yard mark in his career, but keep in mind he almost did it in 2017 with Josh McCown as his quarterback for a large portion of the season. If McCown never got hurt and they didn't have to go to Bryce Petty, he probably would have cracked the 1,000-yard mark that year. Last year, he started slow and then was banged up, but how he came on down the stretch is something that I'm really excited about. And he is not, despite what a lot of people think, he is not someone who can just run 9 routes. Yes, that's his bread and butter, but his route tree is also developing. Look what he did in this past game against the Saints on Lattimore, who is a phenomenal cornerback, probably a top 20 cornerback in the league. He ran a very nice down and out route where he made Lattimore, bust his ankles, essentially. He is extremely fast, so yes, he is a deep threat, but his deep threat is also going to help him expand his route tree. For example, in the Falcons game this preseason, he was hit on a slant in the red zone to pick up a first down and put the ball inside the 5-yard line. He is someone who, yes, you can beat down the field with just about any cornerback in the league, but he's going to develop even more so and become even more diverse. Luckily for the New York Jets, Adam Gase seems to absolutely love Robbie Anderson. He talks him up any chance he can get. And the reason why I have him leading the way in yards and touchdowns is because of Sam's comfortability with him. Yes, early on last year, it seemed like Quincy Enunwa was going to be that guy. But once Enunwa went down, he really favored Robbie Anderson. Granted, he was pretty much the only playmaker left with a ton of other injuries, but he's an extremely solid and versatile piece who I think is going to crack the 1,000-yard mark and going to push upwards of single digits in terms of touchdowns. Yes, this means I also think that Robbie Anderson is signed long-term after this year, which was 100% the right move. He is someone that you want to build around as he's extremely young and will, again, show that he has a lot of chemistry with the quarterback. The de facto wide receiver number 2 is Quincy Enunwa. I think he's going to have a pretty productive year if he can stay healthy. Now, last year he struggled to stay on the field, and the year before that we know he didn't play at all due to injury. But if you remember 2016 with a bad Ryan Fitzpatrick, he was tremendous. Quincy Enunwa had a very solid year, had over 800 receiving yards, and this past year he only had 450 receiving yards, but he missed 5 games. So if he played in those 5 more games, that's probably going upwards of 600 yards, right in the range where I expect him to be this year. I think we could expect Enunwa to have about 600 receiving yards, 4 touchdowns on about 43 receptions, somewhere between 40 and 45. So I split the difference and I went 43. While those numbers don't exactly jump off the page at you, keep in mind the amount of targets that are going to be going around. Yes, this is going to be a more high-powered offense where Sam's going to be forced to throw the ball a little bit more, but it's not like he's the only guy on the field that you can rely on. In 2016, when he went over 800 receiving yards, he pretty much was, because Brandon Marshall was a shell of himself. Eric Decker got hurt early in the year, and they didn't have much depth after that. That's why Ryan Fitzpatrick and Bryce Petty really started to feed the ball to Quincy Enunwa, and while I think he's an extremely versatile guy who could line up anywhere on the field, realistically, he could line up outside, he could line up as the slot, he could line up at a tight end, he could line up in the backfield. This is someone you want to get the ball in his hands. And on third down especially, yes, Someone else we're going to talk about just next, Jameson Crowder, I think is going to be a big piece on third downs. But Enunwa is someone who you can have run over the middle. He has sure hands, and he can do a lot once he gets the ball in his hands. He is someone you want to hit in space, and that way you let him do the rest with his legs. The third guy that I'm going to talk about is our slot receiver in Jameson Crowder, brought in here from the Redskins. Last year he was banged up, but with that Washington Redskins offense throughout the years, he has shown to be a very versatile piece in the slot, and I think he is going to be just that. Adam Gase loves his slot receivers, loves them. Just look at his work in Miami. So it's pretty obvious that this guy is going to get a ton of work in the offense, and for a good reason. As you saw in the Giants game in week 1 in the preseason, Sam favored him on the opening drive, and he looked really good. Now, this is someone you want to hit over the middle too, because he has blazing speed, and he's also someone from the slot who can also be kind of a deep threat. Most slot guys are just someone who's going to run little quick stuff over the middle, like a Julian Edelman, but this guy in Crowder can burn you deep. So that's two guys, potentially, in Robbie Anderson and Crowder who can work the ball down the field, which is exactly what the Jets are going to try and do offensively, because that opens up everything else for Le'Veon Bell underneath. For me, for Crowder, I think you could expect around 700 receiving yards, 5 touchdowns, and about 60 receptions. I think he's going to get more receptions and yards, and even touchdowns too, than Quincy Enunwa from the slot. It's not to say that Enunwa's bad. I think that's fine numbers for Quincy Enunwa if he's giving you that. But Crowder is going to get just a little bit more work because he, again, is a favorable matchup. He's going to be going up against slot corners. He's going to beat linebackers over the middle in zone coverage. He is someone who is extremely versatile. And the fact that the Jets, if they stay healthy, please God stay healthy. If all three of those guys stay healthy, yes, they're not big name guys. Like there's no Julio Jones or Odell Beckham Jr., but they're three very capable NFL wide receivers who I think are underrated. And this Jets offense, for the first time in a long time, is going to be much, much better than their defense. And a big part of that is because the initial top-tier talent at the wide receiver position. Now, after the top three in Enunwa, Crowder, and Anderson, doesn't do a lot for me. Yes, Dortch, I think, is a nice punt returner. Bellamy is a special teamer. They don't really have that fourth guy who I could step up and be comfortable with. Maybe Deontay Burnett, but he's no lock to even make the roster. So for me, I am just focusing on these three guys, and I like them a lot. Let me know in the comments what you think. Give me your stat predictions for these big three guys, and let me know who's going to lead the team in receptions, touchdowns, and receiving yards. Thank you so much for tuning in. I look forward to watching these guys in 2019, and I will do more videos leading up to the season on my expectations per positional group. Thank you so much for watching. Give the video a thumbs up if you liked it. Make sure to subscribe, and I'll talk to you guys next time.